Hi, I'm Heather, 1/3 of Travel Small, Live Big. The other 2/3 are Lexi, who's over there sleeping, our black lab, kind of the only real reason anyone watches this channel, and my husband, Jim. I'm in the cockpit of our boat. It's kind of bright out here. I may have to put my sunglasses on, but I'm trying to give you a little bit better view than last time. This is our view out our back. And I was tagged in the top 5 adventures by the Last Grownup in the woods. I will put her link to her video right up there. So the sun's reflecting off of the cabin of the boat, so sorry. It's the only way to see. Plus I have planes going overhead. Anyway, the Last Grownup in the woods was tagged by Happily Ever Outdoors, who was tagged by the originator of the series of tags, Vandy's Call to Adventure, so you might want to check out those as well. And actually, I feel pretty honored to be in the 3rd generation of a tag. So the tag is to share our top 5 adventures so far. Narrowing it down to 5 was the hardest part. I mean, I thought about this for a while. We've done a lot of road trips down Baja. One was taking my mom when she was like in her early, mid-80s down Baja in the back of my car, not in the back of the truck, but the back of the car, and scattering my dad's ashes all up and down Baja, cruising on our Columbia 50 in Mexico for 3 seasons, so many camping trips to Oregon, so that was the hardest thing to do. So in no particular order, buying our boat in Florida, that will be number 1. This was a great adventure, then it was a hideous adventure, and then it was a great adventure again. So at the time we were buying our catamaran, there were very few catamarans on the West Coast in California. So we took 2 trips to Florida to go to the Miami Boat Show. We looked at catamarans from Miami up to Fort Lauderdale, all in between, even further north. Came back to California and looked on the internet every day for years trying to find the boat that we could afford and the style we wanted. So Jim calls me at work one day and says, hey, I found a boat, and you know, look at this website. And I looked at it and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. This boat was trash, it was beat up. Basically the guy had just walked off the boat. So we put an offer on it and we flew to Florida, checked it all out, and bought it. And then we have our Columbia 50 on California's coast and a 49-foot catamaran in Florida. So we arranged to have the boat freighted, another plane going above. Arranged to have the boat freighted with a company that I will not name, but if you ever want to freight a boat, let me know before you do it, and I'll say don't use that company, or yeah, use that company. So we get the boat down the ICW. We had to park it for a few weeks in Fort Pierce, I think, and then took it down to Fort Lauderdale. We hurried down the ICW. My brother came down from North Carolina to do the trip, and we had to go out in the Atlantic the 2nd day because we had to get there to meet this freighter. And a wind had been blowing for days. It was pretty sloppy out there. I was nervous, and my brother, who gets seasick, like, this isn't what I signed up for. But anyway, we get to Fort Lauderdale. We have to go back to California, and the freighter doesn't come. We leave our friends on the boat, and they had to move the boat and find another slip, something about eelgrass. So they sent us a picture, said, your boat's by this pink bridge. So we ended up waiting for 3 months to get that boat on the freighter. Finally get it on the freighter, and I asked the lady that was running the company to do me one favor, and that was to email me or call me the day it was going through the Panama Canal. Noisy little boat. And she didn't. So anyway, we finally get the boat to Ensenada. It went through a hurricane, the bimini got ripped, and we were so excited to go down there and watch the boat getting off this freighter. It was amazing. We parked it in Ensenada for about a month, then brought it up to Southern California. So the hideous part was dealing with this freighting company, calling them every day for 3 months. But in the long run, it was worth it. Big adventure. So number 2, Costa Rica. We've actually been twice. Jim was helping deliver a boat from Southern California to Puerto Rico. I flew down and met him in Mexico once, and then flew down and met him in Costa Rica. We had a great time, but he got off the boat there. So on a big birthday for me, I planned a 2-week trip to Costa Rica. And since we live on a boat, we're at the beach all the time, I wanted to do inland. I picked 4 volcano areas. Well, one's cloud forest area, Monteverde, Tenorio, Poas, and Arenal. We fly down there. We took the red eye, which was a mistake because we felt like crap when we got down there. And we had some friends that used to live in this harbor. We hung out with them in Mexico a little bit. They were on their boat in Mexico, and they were living in Costa Rica as their son wanted to go to school down there. So they took like 5 buses and a taxi to come visit us. We're walking up the hill and I sprained my ankle the very first night for a 2-week, basically hiking vacation. So that was the bummer part. Nothing that ice and wine didn't help though. And our friends Alan and Susan, the people that we left on our boat in Florida, were flying down. They met us and we went and got our rental car and we proceeded to drive all over in the mountainous areas. That was kind of crazy because this rental car had the worst tires ever. We had a bubble on one of them, but I think it cost maybe $2 to get it changed. We went up to the cloud forest of Monteverde. We went to a sloth sanctuary. We hiked so much in like 2 or 3 days we could barely walk. We hiked in the rainforest, went to a butterfly sanctuary, a coffee plantation. Just amazing. We zip-lined. We did this monkey swing, which was crazy. It was so much fun. Then we drove to Tenorio. There are 2 creeks that meet, and the different minerals in the water are supposed to change the water to this beautiful turquoise blue. So we go hiking and it's pouring rain and we're on this narrow path, and the rain basically has turned these 2 beautiful rivers into mud. We are walking across like trees, fallen trees that are the bridges with maybe a little cable going across. And I kept saying, this is crazy because we have to hike back out of here. And if these rivers get above these bridges, we are in, you know what. So hike back down, pouring rain still. And there's people hiking up and they're wearing like ballet flats. We're like, are you insane? So went back to this beautiful hotel. We had a view of Nicaragua. It was gorgeous. We could hear howler monkeys. There was other monkeys in the trees. We hiked some more, just beautiful. Then we drove to Arenal, spent some time there, and actually got to see the top of the volcano and smoke coming out of the top, which is kind of crazy. Then we went to Poas volcano, and that was amazing too because we hiked up to the volcano and you could look down into it, and you know, there's activity going on in there. So that was a lot of fun. We flew home, they flew to Panama and did their own thing. Lots of fun. Okay, number 3, sailing this boat from Southern California down the outside of Baja to La Paz, Mexico. I had a job offer down there, and so I quit my job with a corner office, pretty good pay, went down there to try to work. That fell through, that's another whole story, but the outside of Baja is amazing. We had 3 friends on board and we made it a trip. We left Ventura, we had a big party here, and backed out of the slip, and there's probably 40 people on the dock saying goodbye to us. We go out by the channel entrance and the dredge was in the entrance, so there we sat. There's people on the beach and they're like radioing us on VHF saying, why aren't you leaving? We're like, kind of anticlimactic, but we can't get out of here. So we overnighted to Ensenada, had a birthday there, then left there and stopped at Cedros Island, a few other places, Turtle Bay, and then went into Santa Maria Bay. And the highlight of this was going into Mag Bay. That is a big bay that is known for whale watching. A lot of whales go in there to have their baby whales, and we saw whales everywhere. Gray whales would go right by the boat. It was pretty amazing. But what we want to do was go up in the mangrove canals, which boats don't generally go up there. It's a very shallow draft. There are no channel markers. So we would take our dinghy out. It had a little fish finder, and Jim would kind of scout to see where the channel was and then record it on that fish finder. And then we took the big boat, and we have depth sounders in both hulls. So I would just read off, 7, 6, 7, 8, 6, 4, whatever. So we kind of made our own channels, went up, would anchor for a night or so, and we hopped up, I don't know how many miles, but up towards what they call the Devil's Elbow or Puerto Lopez Mateos. We saw 3 other boats during this time. 2 were National Geographic, the Seabird and Sea Lion, and 1 was a Mexican fishing boat. Later we met the captain of one of the National Geographic boats, and he said we were the only private boat that he saw up there that year. There was tons of beach combing. We went hiking, saw a coyote, just really incredible. Nobody gets up in that area. A lot of fun. Left there, headed down to San Jose del Cabo, and got into a lot of whales in that area, and then went up to La Paz where our friends flew home and we stayed. So number 4, our trip to Scotland. I was born in Scotland and my dad took me back when I was 25. I got a hair right there. And actually going to Europe with your dad for a month when you're 25 is pretty much an adventure too. But when our niece said she was getting married in Greece, we found a friend to watch our dog, yes, for a month. Thank you, Dawn. And Jim and I flew to Greece, that was actually an adventure right there, because the way that we got there was crazy. We flew from Los Angeles to Heathrow to Edinburgh, spent the night in a motel really close to the airport, flew back to London Stansfield, some random airport in Germany, and then to Thessaloniki, Greece, where we stayed about 10 days. Had to go back through Germany and then to Edinburgh, where we stayed there. We walked that entire city. It's just beautiful. If you ever can get there, I highly recommend it. And then we rented a car. And since I had driven there before, I told Jim I would drive. And the girl that was watching Lexi is actually from England, so she just kept saying, passenger to the sidewalk, passenger to the sidewalk. And I really only messed up once or twice. Neighbors here. My next door neighbor was dropping off some avocados. They're going on a trip. So anyway, I only messed up once when I was doing a left turn because I just kind of went in front of somebody. So I think I did pretty well. Plus, I'm not really a beer drinker. I'm not a scotch drinker. So I thought, hey, he could have a little fun. I'll drive. Another plane. It's like plane day. There's, I don't know, 8 planes have flown by in the last 15 minutes. Some of the other things that were semi-adventurous was to eat haggis. Okay, just the labels on there, that's just gross. You know, lamb offal, like, ugh. But the lady that lived 2 houses away from us when I was born and a baby wanted to make it for us. So she did one that was regular and one that was vegetarian haggis, which that's an oxymoron right there. We ate it. Not something I'm gonna buy again. What else did we do there? We lawn bowled with the locals. We went to the Highland Games in the Highlands, which that in itself is pretty cool. Went to so many castles and beautiful buildings. I couldn't even tell you how many. It was a fabulous trip. Super expensive, so probably not one we are going to repeat. Okay, number 5. This is cruising Mexico on this catamaran. So after basing out of La Paz for a summer and that job, that company not coming through for me, our friends that we left on the boat in Florida, who also met us in Costa Rica, flew down and we took off to cruise mainland Mexico. So went out of La Paz, went to Muertos, crossed the Sea of Cortez, and probably had one of the most calm, beautiful crossings ever. Went into Mazatlan, spent some time there. Old Town Mazatlan's beautiful. They are taking the old colonial style buildings and making, oops, bumping the table, making restaurants out of them where you walk through what would be the living room, and that's a bar set up, and inside the courtyard area is a beautiful restaurant. Let's see, then we left there, went to Isla Isabela, which is the Galapagos of Mexico. There are iguanas everywhere, all kinds of bird life. There are frigates and nesting frigates, and you can walk right up to them and they just look at you. Blue-footed boobies, green-footed boobies, brown-footed boobies. That part was amazing. And some of these birds would just make their nest right in the trail, and you're walking around the baby. You're like, you couldn't have found a better spot to put your nest. Anyway, that was super amazing. San Blas and Manichin Bay. We went on the jungle cruise, saw a lot of crocodiles. Went swimming in a freshwater spring up there, which is fenced off, so the crocodiles can't get you. Chacala, probably one of my favorite places to boogie board. And then down around into Banderas Bay, where Puerto Vallarta is, and we got into an amazing turtle and whale show that day. That was just incredible. Actually, I'll link that video too. Then we headed out and around Cabo Corrientes and went further south. Chamela, Tenecatita, Malaki, where actually we met Alan and Susan, the people we left on the boat that went to Costa Rica, blah, 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 back in 1998. Bar de Navidad, and then did that all in reverse. And then crossing the sea, this was the bad part of the adventure. From Mazatlan back to Baja, I had the swine flu, which means your head feels like it's gonna explode. It was the worst headache ever. Jim had it right before that, and I kept telling him, like, come on, snap out of it. And then I realized why he couldn't snap out of it. So crossing the sea, we were plugging up one of our engine filters. Our fuel tanks had, gunk on the bottom that was breaking loose. So we were running on one engine. It was yucky weather, pounding into it. And then we had a bit of a rigging problem. Won't go into that for the non-sailors. Had to drop the main, actually just motor. Got into Muertos, and then finally the headache went away. Took care of the rigging problem in La Paz, and then went up and spent time in the Sea of Cortez, which is gorgeous and beautiful there as well. So that was really a fun, 5-6 months of cruising. So I thought I would swing around and give you a little Lexi bit here, since everybody's probably missing her. And also I'm not being blinded by the reflection from up over here. So, amazing adventures, amazing trips, yay for digital cameras, and now I get to tag 5 other channels. So again, in no particular order, number 1, Happy Trails Hiking. Kay and Matt are always out there hiking, so I'm sure they've had some great adventures as well. Number 2, let's see, who do I have on my list? Josh the travel guy. He's been to some amazing places and is always out there doing something interesting as well. Hi, Jim. Number 3 is DNS Adventures, Deanna and Shane and their dog. Hey, they have the word adventure in their title, right? Number 4, Life with Ken and Jane. They are always laughing, so that's what interests me about them. And right now they are traveling up the 395, I think, so I'm sure they're on a big adventure. And number 5, Brother Dunn. Only he has a catch on his. He has to have his daughter Charlotte do the video because she does amazing adventures and is really cute. So they can either do this or not. Who cares, right? Big yawn. So thanks for watching my top 5 adventures, and if you've enjoyed this, give us a thumbs up. Share with your friends, check out these other channels as well, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Maybe Lexi will do her own version of this as well. And let's see what else. Hey, tell us about your top adventures in the comments below.